We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
Another Tuesday night, another depraved and debaucherous. Thanks for listening in. This is King of Podcasts with you. And a couple of things before we get started, I wanted to give you the mention that I have added a new program to the King of Podcasts podcasting network, the radio network I like to call it, because I do music and talk programming here. I want to give you this heads up. I now have a new series called Podcasters Row. It's a brand new series where I'm talking to other podcasters like myself. And if you yourself is a podcaster or are, part of a podcast and you'd like to be featured on the show, I want to give you some time to go and come on. So I published 2 episodes this week, the first 2 episodes that came out. You could find everything about it on my website, kingofpodcasts.com, and just look down and find Podcasters Row. And you'll see the first 2 episodes right there. Click on them, listen to them, check them out for yourself. And like I said, if you want to go ahead and be a part and be interviewed by yours truly on Podcasters Row, just go to the contact form right there. Contact KOP. You'll look at the very top of kingofpodcasts.com. It's right there. We're going to talk about Pornhub to start off because Pornhub has already gone through a lot of different issues. You know the website, right? Right? The thing that always comes on before a video comes on. Maybe you didn't know that, but listen. You've heard of it. You've known about it. Indicative of what the online porn industry has become. A disruptor, much like anything else in the porn industry. If you didn't know, I did work and dabble in that industry as a podcaster early in my career in 2005. And one of the things I did was, we see all the free content that's out there that before then it was all documented. Everything had to be legal in terms of age limitations, of course. When it came to the performers, when it came to who could access the content, who could buy the content. But since it's become free and people can finagle around a site like Pornhub, which allowed a lot of content to be free up there and a lot of content as well that could be put up by anybody. Well, Pornhub has gone through its issues. So what was it? 2016, there was a new law that was enacted. Pornhub, it was because of sex trafficking, child pornography, and issues that were being found on the Pornhub site. And women that were being abused sexually, and you saw videos up there of women that didn't want to be in those videos. So there was that to look at. And then you look also at what happened with them when it came to the credit card situation. MasterCard, I think Visa and MasterCard both dropped supplying payment services to Pornhub. Said, no, we're out. And this actually happened last week. There's a story that came out, and by the way, a lot of political sites have picked up on it. I'm not going to be in the opinion of everybody else. Like, listen, yes, you don't want pornography to be seen around kids. Absolutely not. Okay? And in the same vein, I would say kids should not go see the Barbie movie because it's probably not good for them. Not so much that there's anything bad in any sexual nature, but I mean, there are some things that, any young people that are under the age of 12, so the PG-13 crowd, that was a proper rating for that movie. Not because of the political messaging, not because of all that stuff, but it's just because of the part that, kids don't need to go ahead and learn about all this kind of things that they were just, there was just something there that parents don't need to take the kids to the movies, but also the kids need to be away and never see anything on Pornhub. Well, in the state of Utah, there was a court case, a lawsuit that came out. Let's talk about it. A Utah law was enacted, and then another one in Louisiana, where they're designed to limit access to materials considered vulgar or explicit. So this Utah law that came into place last week, and the one that came in this week in Louisiana, says it requires adult websites to verify the age of the users, remaining in effect after a federal judge submitted a lawsuit from an industry group challenging its constitutionality. So you have to verify the age. Well, cannabis websites have to verify age as well. Now, they're not necessarily that good, but those protections I understand. And, the Pornhubs of the world don't want to have this, and others that are out there the same way. Now, This proposes a setback for digital privacy advocates and the Free Speech Coalition, suing on behalf of adult entertainers, erotic authors, sex educators, and casual porn viewers over the Utah law, and another one the same in Louisiana. And they tried to argue this group on behalf of the Free Speech Coalition. They said that the arguments that the law unfairly discriminates against certain kinds of speech, violates First Amendment rights or porn providers, and intrudes on the privacies of individuals who want to view sexually explicit materials. Now, there are still people that go to those sites, and porn is very accessible still. Like, it's unfortunate that this is such a big thing because there's just so much traffic to it, especially when, online, most of the money's still made on porn. Keep this in mind too, okay? I learned this very early on when it came to the porn industry when I worked in that and working for Why Not Radio. So all the search engine sites, right? The Googles, the Yahoos, the Bings, all the major websites, they were all funded off the backs of porn. You do understand that. A lot of the companies that were able to go and build internet companies and then become mainstream is because they lived it off of porn, off of adult. And some of those people that worked in adult doing websites and, building out, message boards and forums and HD video and photos and all this kind of stuff, right? You have to understand some of those people that are working in cannabis now, they worked in adult. They all did. I know that. It's just me. It's just honestly true. It's the fringe. And people will go where the money is. So that's what they did. So in Utah, I'm not surprised they want to go and be really, they want to be very clean and they want to be clear of any kind of vulgar sexual content online and any sexual actions in person. So the idea of depraved and debaucherous does not apply in Utah, basically. So now Utah and their legislature, since 2016, have passed laws to combat the public and mental health effects they say watching porn can have on children. Right. But they're saying with the fact that it's the children they're worried about posing the threat in their developmentally formative years when they begin learning about sex. But then where's the part about sex education for these kids? Like, let's counteract that part. They need to learn sex from somewhere so they know what they're doing when they are getting their formative years and they're coming of age and they meet someone, their significant other, whether it's same sex or, opposite sex. You want them to know what sex is all about and what the implications are, the ramifications of getting a woman pregnant if you're a boy, if you're a guy. And a woman getting pregnant when you're with a man, with a boy. Got to figure that out. So the law doesn't specify how adult websites should verify users' ages. Some, including Pornhub, have blocked their pages in Utah, and others have experimented with third-party age verification services, which uses webcams to scan faces and estimate ages based on their features. And the Free Speech Coalition, which has been a very active group in the adult industry going back to when I worked in that in 2005, they were challenging a similar law in Louisiana and vowed to appeal the dismissal. Allison Bowden, who's the executive director of the Free Speech Coalition, said states are attempting to do an end run around on the First Amendment by outsourcing censorship to citizens. It's a new mechanism, but a deeply flawed one. They want to chill speech no matter the method and prohibit it by the Constitution and decades of legal precedent. That's the part we have to understand. Sure, age verification requirements, they're using it as safeguards, reasonable safeguards for our children. But my part still is like, okay, it's the same kind of thought process that caused Backpage and Craigslist to drop anything that dealt with dating or anything that dealt with escorts or massage parlors and all that other stuff. Okay, it's making it more difficult. I mean, there's enough people that do want to go ahead and interact in person at all, which is why dating apps are so shitty. Like, nobody wants to interact in person and actually make the interactions possible. You can't interact with a woman in some cases if you're in front of them. And women will not go ahead and make the attempt to go ahead and ask a guy out or approach. Like, the approaches are not, or they're now seen as that can't be possible. It's non grata. So then what was happening was, and this is what I'm going to tell you with me, is that I did go to the route where if you wanted to meet people for dating or for anything else, you go to Craigslist, you go to Backpage, you put posts up there looking for women or guys of what you want. And that was one way to go, which was, cutting through the other crap. And it didn't cost so much money, and just go in. But what's happening is that more and more of the access for men and women to access depravity, right? To access that debaucherousness that they might want, which maybe some people don't want to get into any commitments or relationships. They just want to have sex. And if they want to go pay for play, if they want to just go and meet somebody and hook up, they can do that. But they're making it now where it's only the very attractive people, the ones that are high income, have a certain look, a certain appeal, a certain desirability, that every other woman wants. The top, 0.5 to 1% of all men that are desirable are the only ones that are getting anything right now. Meanwhile, every other average guy, like yours truly, is not. I'm saying in looks. I'm not saying about personality, just looks. So all of that there says everything you need to know about the situation. And it's just too bad that we're now at this point. But we see that story, and, I understand where they're coming from with it. Let's go into more about it. Like I said, and I hate to have to go to these political sites to talk about it because they're the ones that are bringing it up. But, okay, look, I'm going to go to Politico. I don't normally like going to this site because I don't like the fact that they do hit pieces on cannabis and everybody else. I'm not a fan of the site, but I'll use what they're saying here and talk about it. While the Free Speech Coalition is trying to defend the adult industry or the porn industry in general, Pornhub is the one place that's, I said it, I'm not afraid to use that line. It's cliche, and it's obviously tongue-in-cheek, pulling out. They did. They're pulling out of multiple states. Even Politico put it in there in the subheading. You don't think they were going to make a joke about it? Ha ha ha. Pornhub's pulling out. Ha 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 ha. So they'd rather get out of the multiple states and comply with age verification laws. So they go into the story and they go through a long thing about Louisiana and their legislature also passing a bill about this as well. And by the way, both of the bills passed almost unanimously. The House 96-1, the Senate 34-0. And this is in Louisiana. Porn websites are liable now, being held liable unless the websites perform reasonable age verification methods. And then this age verification bill that's actually been passed in 6 other states: Arkansas, Montana, Mississippi, we just mentioned Utah, Virginia, and Texas. And also, these politicians passed it overwhelmingly, lopsided margins. In just over a year, age verification laws have become the most bipartisan policy in the country, creating a havoc in the porn industry that many had considered all but impossible to actually regulate. That's what they're going to go and do. Now, there were points that there were efforts to try to curb online porn, declaring sites had a danger to public health. The laws were not symbolic. So now Pornhub gets more global users than Amazon or Netflix. 2019, they said the site was visited 42 billion times, but that was when they still had all the content that people could upload, or they can go ahead and find other people's content, or including amateur content. Now it's all professional. And, there's a lot of stuff you have to pay for to look at. So they changed the whole deal to get that there so they could do it. Now, they go ahead and say that the bills didn't originate from some evangelical political action committee or a conservative think tank. It actually came from the Howard Stern show. So December 2021, and there was an Apple News story that there's a particular politician in Louisiana that saw Billie Eilish had an appearance on Howard Stern. And she actually told Howard Stern, quote, "I used to watch a lot of porn, to be honest. I started watching porn when I was like 11. I think it really destroyed my brain. I feel incredibly devastated that I was exposed to so much porn." And that was enough to say, okay, we're going to do something about it. The fact that Howard Stern talked about it with Billie Eilish. But, hey, it's too bad that Billie Eilish had to go ahead and experience it at such a young age, because it does, it's just a porn altogether. It does mess with your mind. It does mess with what would be healthy sexual contact. And that's the problem we're having here. Now, sexual contact doesn't have to be where, only the few get a chance to fool around and have fun like everybody else. But now we're getting that at all. And it's now gotten to the point where it's all being changed. Now, they also talk about that some of the many ills that childhood exposure to porn can cause is there are record numbers of young men having erectile dysfunction. Others disputing the casual link to porn while not disputing the absurd rise in sexually dysfunctional young men. Right. Plus, there's the porn to rape argument that they're trying to put out there. I don't take that too much. There's other things that contributed to that. But I do think there's something to be said about the dating game has already been screwed up. There's a reason why porn and the debauchery of going to, like, say, a massage parlor for a happy ending, or going to a brothel, or going to somebody that's an escort, and you find their page, which, by the way, there's not Backpage anymore, but there are other sites. I'm just going to tell you, there are other sites that do the same thing, and people can still go find their way to get your jollies off. But then you're doing it all online. You're not meeting people in person, in actual contact. Listen, it's fine. People don't want to worry about the fact they don't want to have prostitution on the streets, but they'd rather accept homelessness. See, I don't understand that. I'd rather the homeless not be out there, but the homeless people, it's an acceptable behavior because of the fact that it will deter away drugs and prostitution and that kind of racket. And that's what they're trying to take care of. So they want to make it where all the pornography, all the debauchery is now inside of people's homes, private. And we don't know what's happening to anyone. Adults should be consenting adults doing things together, hooking up and doing whatever they want, having sex like they want. Okay, it's their choice. And if they want to go someplace, they want to go to a swingers place, they want to go to a strip club, to the champagne room, they want to go to a massage parlor, they want to go to a brothel, whatever, they should be able to have that right to do so. People get what they want, okay? And then they can worry about sexually transmitted diseases if they're going to catch it, but they have the risk, but let them have that risk. That's their vice. That's the part I don't understand here. And that's where we're at this point. But of course, regular sex it's not even considered anymore. That's the part I see as well with all the changes in culture, which I'm not going to get into all the details. I'm just saying it's like sex is non grata. It's like sex shouldn't be allowed. But actually the point is, the more sex you have, the better your life is. Now, yes, it shouldn't have to be with other people. Even when you're religious, by the way, in religion, they want you to be married before you have sex. But once you're married, then go fuck your wife or your husband till your dick comes off, okay? Or, till your vagina goes dry. You have it. Have as many kids as you want. Go for it. Make love. Make love, not war. I agree with that 100%. Rodney Dangerfield, back to school. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. And this is where I'm coming from right now, that I look at this and I'm saying, man, it contributes to a lot of things. A lot of things that I see here. There's a few other stories I want to bring into the mix before we wrap things up. A couple of stories that caught my attention. Now, did I already talk about this? The survey from Tinder about the half of Tinder users don't want to date. They don't want to date. But we should bring that up here because of the point. So it was a study that came out and it's titled Cyber Psychology, Behavior, and Social Networking. Despite the popularity of online dating, research and people's experience with dating apps is lacking. And when this survey talked to English-speaking Tinder users ages 17 to 84, they asked about motivations for using the app, the number of matches and online dates they had, their selectiveness in choosing partners, and so many other things. Other psychological measures they talked about. The big percentage, about half, were not going online to find dates. And it's an interesting question they ask about as to why someone would spend all this time on a dating app if they're not interested in finding a date, because they want to hook up. They want sex. That's it. Besides looking for committed romantic partners or uncommitted sex partners, many people reported the app for social connectedness, for entertainment and distraction, to increase positive emotions that kept cope with negative ones. Well, then they're also making the point that Tinder, people are not going on there to screw. They're not on there for sex. They're not in there to fuck. That's part of it too. So dating is not even the importance on the app. And then there's a story come around from Psychology Today. It talks about why so many men feel lonely today. At the point right now. That's one of the things I also worry about, because how many kids or teenagers or young men that are, besides the fact, they're not even looking at necessarily porn, like your traditional porn. They're looking at cosplay. They're looking at AI-generated girls and being simps for them, and OnlyFans girls. All this shit, right? And you're seeing all this coming along, and I'm like, oh no, this is not good. But while they're talking about this, there's the part where among all these kids, teens, 20-somethings in general, they have smaller social networks and support systems than females do, and fewer to turn to when life got rough. An undercurrent of loneliness. So men have grown lonelier over time, reportedly having fewer close relationships than before. And they talk about, the CDC actually reports that loneliness, people who are lonely are at a higher risk for dementia, heart failure, or stroke, or even premature death. Men often reported having fewer friends or social connections to rely on, with 15% saying they have no close friends at all. And part of the issue lies in the unspoken rules men are handed in boyhood. Men are taught to do everything they can do themselves without help, being lone wolves forging their way through sheer grit. But also, we didn't have it to be this way. It's because the women have been trained to think the same way. They don't need men. They want to be successful on their own. They don't want to be subservient or submissive. They think they could do just as good a job as men can. I'm not saying that some women can't find the same levels of, what a masculine man has, and in terms of being successful and all, but part of the enjoyment of being a woman is taken away. Chance of love and relationships and children and raising a family, some of that's being taken away. And that's one of the parts that, with men, that's contributing to the factor as well, but they don't say it in this story, but it's true. Now, the other story I want to bring up here is about monogamy. Ethical non-monogamy. This is a story from Mark Hay and InsideHook.com that we now have a new phrase, ethical non-monogamy, or ENM. It's become now a borderline mainstream relationship structure. And discussions of ENM life are all over Twitter and TikTok, or X and TikTok. Talk shows and reality TV historically put the focus on polygamous arrangements in which a man married many women who didn't openly or officially form relationships with each other. But now it's been changed. It still tends to focus on triads with two bisexual women and one man who are all in relationships with each other, but not anyone else. And that's actually a very small percentage of the polyamorous community, they're saying. So the real definition is, it's an umbrella term encompassing any individual approach to relationships, intimacy, and any sexual or romantic dynamic chat that forms between two or more people that goes beyond traditional monogamy, so long as it's openly, clearly expressed and consensual. Let me read that again, because I want to understand that myself again. So, any individual approach to relationships, intimacy, or any sexual or romantic dynamic that forms between two or more people beyond traditional monogamy. Because I think what happens a lot too is that women also like to use the idea of having a man or two men in the relationship with them, which forces the men, even if they're not homosexual, they want them to acquire homosexual traits. Now, if the guy wants to do it, that's fine. But if the guy puts that out there, I remember when I was, 24 years old, and there was a girl that I was trying to go out with. She wanted to go ahead and have a threesome, but it was like she wanted two guys with her because she wanted the opportunity to go ahead and say that she didn't have to go and choose between one or the other, and that she could just basically Whatever the wind blows, she'll give attention to one or the other. But what she really wanted to do was have attention for one, and the other one she didn't want to give a shit about. That's why. Now, there's an ongoing debate about if people should not say it's ethical non-monogamy or just call it consensual non-monogamy or just non-monogamy. But the other thing is that this is something that's trying to contribute to say, okay, we don't want traditional relationships. Man, woman, man, woman, woman. We don't want regular one-on-one relationships. That we just have to be so to a point that one man or one woman in your life is not enough. Really? I don't understand that part either. But they're trying to make it where there's relationships that people are willing to go ahead and stay in. And one of the educational therapists that talks about this is that part of the beauty of an ethical non-monogamous relationship is the ability to let go of relationship scripts and find out what works for you. Because people don't want to commit anymore. People don't believe in commitment either in dating or marriage. It's all this stuff that's kind of just falling apart. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. They're already screwing up hookup culture. They're already screwing up men and women having sex and learning what sex is like, and porn contributing to erectile dysfunction. Like, all this shit doesn't help guys at all. And then this ethical non-monogamy, that's just women being able to go a circle jerk on guys. That's how I see this. Am I wrong? Is this a good idea? So they want to talk about polyamory, and they want to say that this is a good idea to put us all together. And by the way, this story at Inside Hook is like a reference book, a field guide to the many forms of ethical non-monogamy. You want to look for Inside Hook and take a look there in their sex and dating section. You can read about that yourself. Now, finally, to go and look at the end of all this, I want to take a moment just to go and talk about there was one other story I had. Benching and dating. This is a story I saw. The manipulative practice of benching. So benching in dating terms is moving someone to the sidelines for a bit while you pursue other more desirable prospects. So taking a break is what we used to call it. Now they call it benching. So this is for women, I believe, quite a bit because of the fact they want to pursue other options. Remember when Tom Likas used to do his Likas 101 course, he would talk about how women would say they're in their first marriage, their starter marriage, because they're going to go ahead and eventually break off of that marriage to go and upgrade to the next better marriage. That will be much more beneficial, financially, fiscally, romantically, whatever. And so some will see this as a way to maximize your chances of finding the right partner amid a plethora of choices. But it can be confusing and hurtful for everyone involved. Yeah, you're messing with people's minds, their hearts, when you're doing this. So in a dating context, people who get benched tend to fall into the B team of someone's dating roster. They're the backups, according to a psychologist, Sabrina Romanoff. Rather than break up with a person whom they feel isn't quite their person, the bencher chooses to keep them in the mix by just benching them or deprioritizing them for the time being. That's manipulative as fuck. By benching them, that means, okay, you're going to go out with somebody else, and you've heard that where manipulation goes, where somebody can gaslight. You have a guy or a girl that can love bomb you and make you feel like the most wonderful person on earth, but then they stop spending time with you. One of the things they're going to be doing is benching you. Or just abandoning you and, going full radio silent treatment on you, and then come back all of a sudden to go ahead and get you back into their arms all again because they make you miss them. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So typically looks like slowing down communication, just reaching out periodically to keep the connection alive and the person at least minimally interested. Their position on the bencher's dating roster becomes tenuous relative to others. This is a thing too. Now, Sabrina also says a lot of people use dating to manage their fears of being alone for validation or as a distraction, and they're not always honest with themselves and others. She's right. This is why they can, and then by the way, if they don't want to do benching, they'll say, well, let's just go non-monogamous. Let's do an ethical non-monogamous relationship. Let's just menage a trois without the sex. Yeah. This is, and completely not necessary. It's so many excuses that men and women can have for everything, and I don't like the way this works, but this is what we have to deal with now. And, if I need to, well, I'll get back to the story again, and we'll continue to talk about this because it does bother me like no tomorrow. I don't like it. But it's what they do. What are you going to do, right? So we're going to leave it there. We're going to talk more about this. But let me please make this point out to all of you in the audience. Please don't take heed of these kind of things that are very detrimental, okay? Yes, we don't want to have porn around, but we also don't want to make it where people can't see the other side effects, where people don't get a chance to hook up if they don't want to be in a commitment. But then also, if somebody doesn't want to be in a commitment, they shouldn't be circle jerked into something ethical, non-monogamous, being benched. Okay? We don't need any of that. People should just have the expression, listen, if they want to go and do it online and meet somebody and hook up, or meet in person, we should all be able to go and make it pretty easy and free to be depraved and debaucherous.